we are going to be covering sections 3.3 and 3.4. Section 3.3, the title of that section has to do with slopes. And then section 3.4 is more equations of lines. So we're going to put these two algebra sections together. And we're going to start by reviewing this slope formula right here. So slope is a concept that we use quite a bit in algebra. You can think of it as rise over run. You can think about it as change in y over change in x. That's what those little triangles mean. Delta is change in. Or a lot of kids like to just think about the formula because you can apply that to find your slope. So the formula for slope is change in y over change in x. Be sure you remember that the y's are on top. I get a lot of kids that put the x's on top, and then your slope is upside down or it's the reciprocal. So a lot of times in I-STEP tests or standardized tests, they will ask you what another phrase is for slope, or they'll mention this phrase, and you want to know that this means slope so that you can say, oh, that they're just asking me for the slope. And that phrase is rate of change. So if they ever ask you the rate of change, like if you think of a car moving at miles per hour, that would be another name for slope. And so some of the word problems that you guys will end up having in different courses will use that instead of slope. All right, one other thing I want to point out is there's a Latin word that starts with M that means slope, so they pulled that M off the Latin word, and that's why we use a lowercase m for slope. I was curious, so I looked that up one time. So when you guys see the lowercase m, that is slope. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find slope from a graph. So this goes back to when you guys were in pre-algebra and algebra. To find the slope from a graph, you locate 2 points on the graph. And you remember that we want the change in y over the change in x. So I always start at the bottom dot, and I rise up to see how far I've gone up, and then I turn and I run backwards to get to the other dot. Now, it's my preference to start at the bottom dot. You don't have to start at the bottom dot, but to me it's easier. So these are pretty close together. Don't count the one you're on. You're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's up 8. And then you're going to turn and run backwards 1, 2. So since you're running backwards on a number line, that's -2. Okay, so we're going to put that together as a fraction. So the rise was up 8, the run was back 2, and we're going to always reduce slope to lowest terms. So I'm just going to make this -4. Or you can make it -4 over 1 if you want to. Keep in mind, if the line is going downhill from left to right, there should be a negative on your slope. So you can always double check that if the line goes downhill from left to right, yes, my slope is negative. Okay, we're going to go to number 4. So I'm going to pretend like I don't know what the slope is because a lot of kids forget. So I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other one. I'm going to find 2 points on the line. You can pick any 2 points you want, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do the change in y over the change in x. Okay, the change in y, how far up did I go? Well, I didn't go at all, so that's a 0. But then I went forward, or you could say backwards. I went 1, 2, 3, 4, or you could go backwards, -4. And then I remember that I can take 0 divided by a number. That is legal. 0 divided by any number is 0. So the slope of this line is 0. Now, in your vocab, you're going to see a word that's called hoy. And I use this with my algebra kids, too, because it helps you remember these different things that happen with a horizontal line. So here's what hoy stands for. Hoy stands for horizontal. So horizontal lines have 0 slopes, and their equations are y equals a number. So when you guys see hoy, that's a packed word. That means you have a horizontal line with a 0 slope, and the equation is y equals a number. So I use hoy, and then you'll also have vux, which I'll show you what that is in just a second. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to move down here, and we are going to find the slope of a line given 2 points. So this time we don't have the nice handy-dandy graph. We're going to find it using the formula. So go to the top, locate your formula. This is the formula we're going to use since we have 2 points. So I'm going to copy that formula down. Slope is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Okay, now we're going to label these points x1, y1, x2, y2. That just means like 0.1, 0.2, kind of like when we did midpoint and distance formula. Okay, we are going to subtract. Now the key with doing slopes is to do them in the correct order. I can either take negative 3 minus 2, or I'll be honest, you could do 2 minus negative 3. It doesn't really matter, but since I wrote my formula this way, I'm going to do negative 3 minus 2. Then on the bottom, because I did the negative 3 minus 2, I have to do negative 8 minus 5. I have to still start with that second point, so I'm going to go negative 8 minus 5. So keep in mind that you can't go like back point minus first point and then on the bottom switch and do first point minus back point. That's not going to work. It's got to be in the same order. Okay, so now we are going to simplify this. This is negative 5. This is negative 13. And if you remember, a negative over negative turns positive, so you're going to switch both signs. And that is your slope, and that's as far as you can reduce. So that means this line went up 5 and forward 13. Up 5 and forward 13. Okay, so flip your page over. Now we're going to start writing equations of lines. Before we do that, though, since there wasn't a VUX on the front, let me tell you what VUX stands for, because you're going to see that in your vocab also. So VUX is an acronym that you can use for V is vertical line, U stands for undefined slope, and x equals a number is the equation of a vertical line. Okay, so what I want to tell you is if you get a number over 0, let's say you do slope and you get 9 over 0, that is undefined because you are not allowed to divide by 0, so you call this an undefined slope, which means it's a vertical line and the equation of that line would be x equals a number. So keep that in mind. It's going to pop up on the front page when you go to do these on your own, but that's what VUX stands for. Okay, so now what's going to happen is we are going to start doing equations of lines. So the very first equation I want to point out is something called point slope. Some algebra teachers love point slope, and some algebra teachers are like, I'm not even teaching point slope. So my hope is that you had an algebra teacher that taught you point slope, but if you did not, I will teach it to you, okay? In high school, we like to use point slope because it's very friendly. So why do we think it's called point slope? Well, because you can use it if you know a point and you know your slope. That's why it's called point slope. Okay, so watch how easy it is to use point slope. Write the equation of a line in point slope form that passes through the given point and has the given slope. Hence the name point slope. So let's go label this one as x sub 1, y sub 1, because we only have 1 point. And then our m is 3. Okay, so we're going to take this equation, we're going to plug these numbers in. So I'm going to do y minus, and then I'm going to put my y in, which is negative 6, equals, m comes next, my m is 3, parentheses, x minus, and then I put in my negative 9. Now, when I see that I get a minus a negative, then I know that I'm going to change these to plus positives. So that will change to a plus positive, and that will change to a plus positive. So my final answer would be y plus 6 equals 3, parentheses, x plus 9. Keep in mind that when you guys write point slope, whatever the sign was on the point coordinates, they're going to flip when you put them in. So check this out. This was a negative 9. Now it's a positive 9 in the back. This was a negative 6. Now it's a positive 6 in the back, in the front. So the y's will be in the front and the x's will be in the back, which is a little different. Okay, so now what's going to happen is we're going to take what we just learned on point slope and we are going to change our equation into something you're more familiar with, which we use more often, which is slope intercept. So slope intercept is in the form y equals mx plus b. M is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So keep in mind that those are the two letters that you're going to need to plug in. So you're going to be filling in an m and a b. Okay, so I'm going to do what I did with point slope. I'm going to use that here, but I'm also going to make a little mark down the middle and show you two ways. So I'm going to do it with point slope, and then I'm going to do it with slope intercept because some teachers in middle school teach it that way. My own kids' teachers did that. So I'll show you both ways. Okay, so this is going to be the high school method, and this is going to be the middle school method. And I will be honest, I don't care which way you do, but the high school one's a little more professional, but the middle school one is fine too. So the high school method is we are going to use point slope. So I'm going to go ahead and write the point slope formula from up here. I'm just transferring this down here. Y minus y sub 1 equals m parentheses x minus x sub 1. Okay, I'm going to come over here to my point, and I'm going to label this x sub 1, y sub 1, and then I know my m is 2/3. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my equation, and I'm going to actually plug in the three things like I did in example 7. So I'm going to go y minus, okay, my y is -4, so that's going to be y minus -4, and you might realize again the sign changes, so that -4 turns to a positive, equals 2/3 parentheses x minus, and then I put in my 9. So notice the 9 was positive, now it's negative, so the sign switching. So this is called point slope. So I'm going to label this PS. That is point slope form. And now we're going to change it to SI, slope intercept. So to do that, we are going to distribute first. So we're going to get y plus 4 equals 2/3 x minus, that's going to be an 18 over 3, which is going to be a 6. So we're going to have a minus 6 in the back when we distribute the 2/3, and then we're going to subtract 4. So we're going to get y equals 2/3 x minus 10. Now I am in slope intercept. So check out, I went from point slope and I changed myself into slope intercept, which is usually what we do. We want them in slope intercept, but those are the two forms. Okay, so let's say you were in middle school and you didn't know point slope. Let me show you how you could do this a different way and see if you remember doing this like this in middle school. So go ahead and write out y equals mx plus b, and then we're going to sub in three things to find our b. So we're going to put the point in, so -4 is going to go in for y because that was the y. The slope is 2/3, the x is 9, and we don't know our b, so we're going to leave it plus b. So basically I'm using the slope intercept formula, but I don't know b. Okay, now I'm going to multiply. 2/3 of 9 is 6 plus b, and then I'm going to subtract 6. So -10 equals b. Now I can write my equation because I know my m and b. So y equals 2/3 x minus 10. So check it out. I got the same answer that I did in middle school that I can do by doing point slope. This is usually how we do it in high school, but I will not count it wrong because you have some prior knowledge with it. If you would like to use the middle school method, feel free if you feel comfortable. Otherwise, try the point slope and then change to slope intercept.